Good afternoon and welcome. Our show today is all about life is better in community. Declare your interdependence. Chris Angevine here, community builder at the Eden Alternative. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Eden Alternative, let me share just a little bit about our organization. Founded in 1994, that was 27 years ago, the Eden Alternative is an international nonprofit organization dedicated to creating quality of life for elders and their care partners wherever they live. Through education, outreach, and consulting, we demonstrate a different approach to how unique living environments can be better for the people who live, visit, and work in them. We are beyond thrilled to be here today with the Pioneer Network to talk about interdependence and independence. Now, I didn't understand that much about the concept of interdependence when I first heard about it. The deeper I got into it, I was like, whoa, this is such a worthy topic for some banter and some reflection. Hopefully this discussion will help you sit back and kind of reflect on your own interdependence and independence and what that looks like and feels like for you. Do we really need others? Are we truly independent in our personal and work lives? So glad you stopped by for our show. Penny?
Thanks so much, Chris. And hi, everyone. My name's Penny Cook, and I'm the president and CEO of Pioneer Network. And like the Eden Alternative, we've been doing this work for over 20 years now. We were founded in 1997, and really our original goal was to transform nursing homes, transforming them like Eden into places where people want to live and where people want to work. And now over the past 20 plus years, we've expanded into assisted living communities and other forms of residential living as well. And we really provide education and advocacy to meet that goal of a person-centered philosophy and person-centered practices. And we're so pleased to be partnering with the Eden Alternative again this year for our Better Together series. And as Chris said, we have really a very interesting topic to talk about today about interdependence and independence. And we almost feel like this partnership between Eden and Pioneer really illustrates that. We also think that after this past year that we've had, it's been such a year for all of us, we are beginning probably all to understand that concept of independence and that need for interdependence. I think it's one of those opportunities, one of those silver linings that the pandemic taught us. And I have to say, during the pandemic, I was reading the book Sapiens. And I don't know if anyone has read that book, but it's a great read, a little bit tough to get through, but it really talks about the evolution of humans. And one of the things I found so interesting, especially for our conversation today, is that the author talks about why Homo sapiens won out, basically, what it was about Homo sapiens that let them proliferate throughout the world. And it was not only their cognitive abilities, but also their cognitive abilities led to the concept of trading. They realized that they needed each other to get through this world, to actually be able to make it. And I thought that that was just so appropriate for our conversation today. You know, we all have this passion about making a difference in the world of aging services. And I think we all think that our passion becomes a stronger movement when we work together. So today, my colleagues, my friends, and I will share our commitment to interdependence, and we challenge you to explore this topic with us. We want you to be a part of the conversation. So comment and ask questions and chat, share, and mark your calendars to join us this Friday for a deeper conversation on interdependence. And Chris, I believe you have a question to start us off.
I sure do. So throughout this show, today, we're going to be asking some questions of you all, just for thoughts and reflections of our audience. And we would love it if you would participate using the chat box for further discussion. It will definitely make us better together with your input. All right, so here's the first question. How do you define interdependence? How do you define interdependence? So up next, we have Joan Devine from the Pioneer Network and Denise Hyde from the Eden Alternative to continue us on.
All right. right. I don't see any comments in the comment box yet, but I appreciate you guys getting, Chris and Penny, getting us started. And I got another book to add to my list. Thank you, Penny. I want to go ahead.
I said, hi, Denise.
Hi, Joan. So independence, interdependence, well, that's what we're talking about. And I have to say, fierce independence, that need to be all on our own is so important in our society. In fact, the more you can do for yourself, by yourself, it raises up your self-esteem, and it also raises the regard that others have for you that are in your life. And we love our independence, but it's a myth. It is a total myth. There is no such thing as independence. And if anything that the pandemic has shown you, I hope that it has shown you just how reliant we are on each other and how much we need each other to get through this. Between the physical distancing, the you can't be with large groups, separations of families for a year now. Holy cow, it's painful to have that separation. And independence isn't all that great. I mean, what if nobody came and picked up your garbage? What if nobody brought food to the store and there wasn't anybody there to take it off the trucks and put it on the shelves, and there was nobody to run the cash register? Imagine that no one was running the cameras at the news station so that we knew what was going on in the world. What if no one made sure we had power or gas or even internet access? Man, that has become really important in our lives. Life would have been so much worse if we had not had a society that really recognized how important interdependence is. That's what helped us get through this past year. So here's the thing about interdependence. It's about the idea that you got two strong individuals or two strong beings, because interdependence is throughout our natural world. But it's when those two realize they have something in common, something, a shared goal, something they need to do, or something they can offer each other, but they can do it in a way that does not compromise their values or diminish their individuality. They get both and. So they get the power of being with others and helping others, but they also can remain strong and unique individuals that they are. So I love some of the definitions in here about interdependence: working together and sharing our strengths, a two-way relationship. We become whole through other people, collaboration and solidarity, recognizing that we are stronger together than separately. Caring for and about each other. Joan, what else are you seeing in the comment box?
Let's see, community. Let's see, here's another better together. What a great theme. A person becomes a person through other people. In other words, a person cannot be fully human without help and engagement with other people. What a great comment, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I love it. I love it. So my mom, many of you know, but maybe not all of you, my mom lives in Southern Texas. She and my dad moved there more than 15 years ago. They packed up their house, sold stuff, stored stuff in our house. They loaded up their RV and they headed down to Texas to an RV park where they knew some other people from their neighborhood, if you will, were living down there. And eventually it became too cumbersome to travel down and back and forth every year. So they stayed down there permanently. So they've been down there for a long time, and it's a long ways away from where we live. And some of the people that are in that park stay there year round. And some people only come down when it's wintertime up north, and then they head back. And this is the time of year that they're heading back. Well, Dad passed away about 4 years ago, which was really, really tough. And the first thing Mom said is, "You're going to make me come live with you." And I thought, no, that's not what we're going to do, because she has this amazing social network in that RV park. It is amazing how they are all together and how important that was going to be for her ongoing well-being. And we knew if we brought her home to where we are, we would not be able to replace it. There's just no way. So it was hard for her at first. We had lots of conversations. It was hard for her to not know how to care for her RV, or how to care for herself, or do things that she needed to get done. And she would have to rely on friends and neighbors down there to do that for her. And she felt like she was being very weak and very dependent. She didn't like that feeling. But eventually she came around to the idea that that's what community is. Everybody pitches in and helps each other. And so over time, she has built this network of support. And when she needs help, they're there. She calls, they answer. It's amazing. They check in on each other, and she's come to realize that she has a lot of gifts to give, and she does. Down there as well. So she's as much a contributing member as everybody else in the group. They have created a family, if you will, of affection. And it is so powerful. They check in on each other, make sure they're all doing well. And that interdependence makes her stronger and healthier. Year round. She's doing really, really well. And they are an amazing group. When we go down and visit, we are immediately embraced through that tribe, that family, and we become a part of it. So we're looking forward to going down and reconnecting with them all soon. So that's kind of my story of interdependence and what that means to me. Joan, what does it mean to you?
First off, Denise, I have to say, it's amazing how our mothers keep teaching us, no matter how old we are. And even in my case, my mom has been gone for 3 years now, and yet the lessons come every day. And as you were talking, I thought about a little bit more about my personal journey between independence and interdependence. And really, it started personally with my mom. My mother was widowed when we were 1, 2, and 3 years old. I was the 1-year-old, and that brought out a fierce independence in her. She had to be in order to keep her family together. And yet there was such a strong interdependence. And it was my biological family, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, but it was a group of, my mom got involved in a group of single and over 25 at the church. And they thought we were really cute because they didn't have kids yet. So it became a very interdependent group where they were our aunts and our uncles, and they were there to help mom out. They were there for us as we were growing up. So I look back at that and I think about the lessons that taught me and the foundation that provided in my life that didn't realize was even happening. But it was there. And then when I look at my professional life, I started out my career as an activity professional, and then I became a nurse. Okay, those can be somewhat varying professions with sometimes different ways of looking at and thinking about things. But boy, there is such synergy when they are connected, when we bring out the interdependence between whether it's nursing and activity professionals or whatever two disciplines or specialty areas come together. We are so much stronger when we come together. And so playing that in my head every day has been an interesting journey for me. But then I also look at how that's tied into my professional journey. And Denise, I have a very special connection to Denise because she is my Eden mentor. So I first met her, and I first really came to embrace what was happening with the Eden Alternative back, about 6 years ago, I guess it was 6 or 7 years ago. I was already pretty involved with Pioneer Network through their conferences and other activities, but I was working with a community that was kind of faltering on their journey, or as Eden would say, they were experiencing a frost. And so I reached out to the Eden Alternative for support. Denise was there. She led our first certified Eden Associate training, and that began my relationship with Denise, and it's been a wonderful relationship throughout the years. I left that position, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect because Pioneer Network happened to be looking for a director of education. So again, over the years, I had gotten to know many of the people connected with Pioneer Network, having hosted the conference in Missouri in 2010 and learning firsthand the interdependence between our state coalition, MC5, and the national organization. So there's another interdependence to look at. And it was great for great experiences. So it was an opportunity to this opportunity put me in the right place at the right time, and I landed my dream job. And so interdependence pays dividends. So that's a good message to know too. But then personally, my interdependence with Pioneer Network and the Eden Alternative is only strengthened over the years. Professionally, in my role with Pioneer Network, I have loved being able to call on my Eden teammates for advice, to brainstorm with them, to collaborate on projects like this Better Together, and to learn from each other. And having worked, I think the other piece about this that makes this work is most of my career, I have worked for mission-driven organizations. And being able to work with Pioneer Network and Eden has just always felt right. It just always felt like things were in sync. And so I've done a little bit of exercise myself, and Denise, pop right in as you want to, kind of looked at, okay, so what is it about the guiding principles of Pioneer Network and Eden Alternative that creates such great synergy, that creates that interdependence? And You look at the mission of both organizations. For Eden, looking at the well-being of elders and transforming communities, Pioneer Network is fostering person-directed practices and environments. Well, that goes hand in hand. You look at the vision. Let's eliminate loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. What a great vision. And we do that by creating a culture that's life-affirming, satisfying, humane, and meaningful. So there we are, back together again.
Yep.
We look at the values: innovation, integrity, community, empowerment, and passion. Those are Eden's values. And they're absolutely things that go hand in hand with the work being done at Pioneer Network. And Pioneer Network has a new credo. And again, I look at it and I can just hear Eden as I look at some of the key points. It talks about pursuing joy and meaning. We talk about lifelong learning. We talk about growth and connection and combating ageism and celebrating the virtues of aging together. Kind of sounds like that could be part of an Eden training, doesn't it, Denise?
Absolutely. Yep. Those words are used a lot by both. Absolutely.
It does. And, we look at the values and the mission, and, we both talk about growth and development. We both talk about knowing the person, about relationships. That is the core, that's a fundamental building block. We talk about the fact that anybody can do things, that everybody does make a difference, that we have to be spontaneous and unexpected things happening in our lives because we're responding to our spirit as well as our mind and our body. We talk about, that Eden talks about the meaningless activity that corrodes the human spirit, that we're looking for something more. And Pioneer challenges us to practice self-examination and search for that new creativity and opportunities for doing more. Eden talks about, this is my favorite Eden principle, that we are more than our medical diagnosis. The medical treatment should support and empower us to experience a life worth living. And Pioneer Network reminds us then to put person before task, because that's what we do. That's what we don't do when we're focused on the medical. We get focused on the task. We both talk about decision-making, how critical that is, and moving decision-making to those who need to be making those decisions, to the elder, to the staff. And we talk about risk-taking is a normal part of life. We need to combat all this surplus safety that is a part of so many of our cultures. We talk about collaboration, and the resilient culture is a never-ending process. And that was from Eden. And Pioneer Network reminds us that culture change is a transformation, and culture change is a journey and not a destination. Excuse me. And so together, we just make sense. Yep. When we come together. What do you think, Denise?
I'm with you 100%. I have looked at both. I've been teaching the principles for years, but the Pioneer Network values are part of our coalition. And yeah, we have a lot more alignment than we have differences. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah.
So we have another question we can pose.
That's right. That's right. So the question is, what holds you and holds others back from really declaring and acknowledging their interdependence? What do you think holds you back, and what might hold others back?
So while you're typing in that your responses to that, we'll bring back Chris and Penny, who are going to share a little bit more, and maybe they'll take a peek at what it was that you should say.
Hi there. Hey, I wanted to point out there's some great definitions of interdependence in the chat box. Thank you so much. Gosh, I don't even know where to start here. Aaron, Patrick, you're saying we can each be different strands, yet we form something greater. I love that. That's like the web, right? The web of connections that I know we talk about. I don't know if we mentioned this one, but Claire, you talk about recognize we are stronger together than separately. That's absolutely where we're going today. I saw another one in here. Let's see. Evie, when we fully integrate the understanding that we are interdependent, I think it helps us work harder to develop positive relationships. And Jackie, I don't know if we talked about this one. A person becomes a person through other people. In other words, a person cannot be fully human without help and engagement with other people. Oh my gosh, so many good things in here. Hey, Lisa, Kendall, I want to give a shout out because you're giving me a great segue into what I'm talking about next. You kind of said, Joan, yes, interdependence of professional care partners is evident in the strength shown in a multidisciplinary team. You even went on further to say, especially when they bring everyone to the table. So that's great. Thank you, Lisa. You are helping me out here because you are bringing to me to what I'm going to talk about a little bit here, if you will allow me, and you will. So as you put in the questions that you had from our previous comment, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about really what I'm going to talk about is like, let's take a moment and look how this idea of interdependence works or doesn't work in an organization, right? Both the Eden Alternative and the Pioneer Network work with organizations who help people who need support, right? But this concept goes beyond our field and is really true, I know, in any organization. So I have had the opportunity to work in both the dining industry and the healthcare industry. Two very different fields, right? But are they? What I've seen through the years is success and struggle in both fields. What was it that made the difference? Well, thinking about interdependence, I told you the first time I heard it, I was like, whoa. So when thinking about interdependence or lack of it, it has really led me to some thoughts. When you work in a place that is deeply entrenched in different silos, departments, and hierarchy, there are issues. One time I was working at this Russian supper club as a server. Sounds pretty exotic, right? And it was kind of, actually. But we had a big problem. It was the classic front of the house versus the back of the house, right? Anybody in the restaurant industry knows what I'm talking about. You can picture it, right? Kitchen versus out front. So here is one of the problems that we had. If I made a mistake putting in an order to the kitchen, or even if the guest or customer changed their mind, the chefs back there would make it absolutely miserable for me to be able to make it right. I remember standing at that window, looking at them, practically begging them in tears for them to please listen to me and get the order right, even if it was my mistake or the guest. They held the power, and I was at their mercy. This certainly impacted me personally. Like, hello, I work for tips. But ultimately, who did it affect? Yep, the customer, the guest, which was actually our customer and our guest. So by not working together, we were really inhibiting the best experience we could provide for the people. And because of pride and sometimes sheer spite, this was not happening. This interdependence was not happening. Well, let me tell you, the writing was on the wall there. It closed not long after it opened, despite having fantastic food. It had a beautiful ambience, and it had basically good people working there. And it had vodka, a lot of vodka. So working in skilled long-term care, assisted living, and independent living really might open my eyes further to these departmental silos and even these silos within departments. When people do not trust each other, they hold power and knowledge close. I remember one time an elder, Carol, I'll never forget her, was moving from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. And this was her choice, right? It was within the same organization, same organization that were interlinked. These buildings were interlinked. It wasn't like down the street or 5 miles away. I innocently, right, because I was new to the industry, I innocently asked when we were going to get together with the new neighborhood team, right, her new care partner team, to share what we had learned about her wants, her needs, her desires for living her days with lots of well-being, which for Carol involved a lot of choice, right, and individual choice. Well, I was informed kind of rather indignantly that we do share medical information through a fax. I was like, what? Why not get together with the teams together, the people who are closest to Carol, so we could really see the whole picture and share knowledge? She had so many interesting and kind of quirky habits that we had learned. So why would we want to make another team have to learn them again when we already had that knowledge? And no one had really thought to do that. At another organization I worked with, the dietary team and the dining team did not get along at all. They were constantly battled on what was best for the elders and the people who lived there as far as dining and food goes. Again, I was kind of like, what? This isn't about a power struggle. It is about being secure in the knowledge that sharing, asking for help, and coming together for the greater good serves all of us in the long and sometimes in the short term. Sometimes there may be personal barriers to interdependence within yourself and organizations. And sometimes it could be one department that maybe has a one-up mentality and doesn't invite others to be involved. All in all, as the example with my Russian supper club, how does any of this help us with our common goal or our vision if we work together for one organization? Whether you're working with people, widgets, or ideas, when empowerment, trust, teamwork, and optimism is in place, we all have a better outcome, including that consumer. So here is question number 3. Within your organization, where do your goals and values align with each other? Let's take a look at them so you can begin to work more interdependently and more independently.
Well, Chris, I have to say, I loved some of your examples, although I'm not going to be able to get the Russian supper club out of my head, and I'm like envisioning it. I'm envisioning you working there, and sometime we'll have to chat more about that. But one of the things that you said that I am just so passionate about is this breaking down of silos. Mm-hmm. And so you all heard now some personal stories from Joan and Denise. You've heard Chris's story about within an organization, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be an aging services organization, whether it be a nursing home or assisted living community. I think we can probably all relate to this idea of the silos that happen. Mm-hmm. But I want us to take it kind of a step higher and just look at community, really just look at that interdependence that we can have between very separate organizations, not even within an organization. And we're kind of giving you an example here with the Eden Alternative and Pioneer Network. And it's so funny because last year when we developed this relationship of co-hosting some education, we came up with Better Together. We didn't have any idea we were going to be doing this Facebook Live event, this live event about interdependence. But one of the things we talked about is that we wanted to model what it looked like to have this mutual relationship, to have this relationship of interdependence. And one of the things that we've talked about is that our two organizations could have easily become competitors. You know, you heard Joan talk about the similarities between our mission and our values and our principles. And probably you might have had those questions too of, you know, how are you the same and how are you different and things like that. And we could have become siloed and just did our own thing. But one of the things I think that we realize as organizations, and all of us who work within the organizations realize, is that we need to leverage each other to advance our mutual goals. And that's what everyone has talked about. And that's sometimes not easy. You know, in order to do that, we have to put aside some of those differences that we have and not always focus on those, but we need to see where we align. What do we have in common? And interdependence does not mean losing your identity. And I think really in our American culture, sometimes we're so fearful of that. You know, we're known as this independent culture. And if we have anything that has to do with dependence, and obviously dependence is in the word interdependence, we get scared. We get very scared about that. But I think that one of the things that we saw as organizations is that we both have a common foundation that you've heard about, and we both have some common goals. So how can we leverage the best of each organization to move that together. And I think we see other examples of that in the world that we work in aging. Pioneer Network is part of the Advancing Excellence in Long-Term Care Collaborative, and that came out of the Nursing Home Quality Campaign. And what it really is, it's a collaborative of organizations. It includes everybody from the American Healthcare Association to Leading Age to Consumer Voice, to AMDA, the American Medical Directors Association, the American College of Healthcare Administrators, so many different organizations that work in this world of long-term care specifically. And one of the things we've realized is we don't always agree. We do not always agree. I think there's like 30 plus individuals and organizations, but we realize that we have common goals. And think about that. When we put together ideas and people and resources from 30 different organizations to work towards those common goals, that's how we affect change. And that's what interdependence is all about. Chris, I didn't know if you were going to say something there, but
no, I was just kind of like making movements and cheering you on back here. I'm like, yeah,
feel free.
Yeah, I could really say something. Oh, go ahead, Penny.
No, I was just going to say, I think, one of the things we talk about in the culture change movement is we need to make that personal transformation. Mm-hmm. And we need to make an organizational transformation. And I think that's why the conversations that we're having today are so important, because I think in order to make that organizational transformation, in order to view the world this way that we work, especially professionally, we have to have that personal transformation happen as well. Mm-hmm. We have to realize that independence is not all it's cracked up to be. There is definitely, as you heard from Denise and Joan too, there is definitely components of independence that we need to have as individuals, but we need to realize that we need each other too. We need that mutual connection, that give and take. And when we make that transformation within ourselves, that's when we begin to make that transformation within our organization and between our organizations to create community. So I'm so excited that we're having this conversation.
You're just getting me all fired up over here. I'm like, yeah, go Penny, interdependence. And yeah,
it's all about interdependence. So I have a question for all of you who are watching. I want to know what's one thing you can do to foster interdependence in your professional or personal life. What's one thing that you're not doing now that you can do to foster interdependence? And as you chat about that, I'm going to invite Joan to come back on.
Before we do that, I want to hit a couple comments in the chat box, because I feel like we're hitting a lot of questions. You guys are answering, and I see some good stuff in here about talking about what is holding us back. And I really, there's some great answers in here, because, like I said, when I was first thinking about this, I'm like, I'm independent. I'm very independent. I don't need anybody. And you know what? That's so not true. But what are some things? And so after that question, we had Jackie, you can often be seen as weak and needy. I found that so often that people, they hold on to this because they don't want to be seen in a different light. They don't trust individuals around them, or they're just scared. And it could be through personal trauma. Who knows, right? And Kathy, thank you. Our society values independence often to a fault.
Oh, right? That's so true.
Yeah. My husband won't ask for help. I'm like, would you give people help, honey? He's like, well, of course. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you ask for help? Well, I don't do that. I'm like,
asking for directions, right? That whole thing. I mean, like the simplest of concepts. When we don't know something, what do we teach our kids to do if they don't know something? To ask, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not okay for us to do it. And I love what Michelle said too. Collective strength is not a sign of weakness. It's wisdom, synergy. Mm-hmm. I just love that. Collective strength is not a sign of weakness. It's wisdom.
Love it.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
It really is.
Yeah. You see a couple more of these if we can get them up here. I love this. Let me see. Jessica L, you're saying what may hold people back? Pride and a fixed mindset. Yep. Sometimes it's what we're taught too, right?
I think that as a society, like I said, I think that as a society, we are taught to value independence so much. And I think that, of course, that's a piece of who we are. But Kathy's point was a good one. Sometimes it's to a fault. And if we get so ingrained in that, it's so hard for us to reach out and include others. And Jessica, I see what you said, I think in response to my question, that one of the things that you're going to be trying to do is reach out more and share. And that's exactly it. You know, I think it's important for us to realize that we can't foster a relationship of interdependence until we become a little bit vulnerable and understand that we do need to share more and become a bit more open ourselves. But I think the rewards just are so expansive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, be more vulnerable. I see that, Jackie. Apparently we were on the same wavelength there.
And Karen, I really appreciate, Karen Stewart, your comment about how this is a personal struggle for you right now. The reality is we don't practice it well enough. It is a struggle. And I just want to acknowledge and thank you for that heartfelt comment in there. The people are well cared for, and most would say they're happy. But yeah, you know, we could do better. So I can understand how personally that can be frustrating you. I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, this is great. Well, hi, Joan. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hey, there you are.
Glad to be back. Oh my gosh, I'm not even quite sure where to come in on this conversation. This has been just phenomenal. And I don't know if Denise is going to come up and join me too, so I have some company, or Chris, if you're going to stay with me. But as I was listening to you, I couldn't help think about the fact that in my career, I worked for two large organizations for a good share of my career in long-term care. And one of them was the leadership was, you know, what we created was proprietary. And that was entrenched in all of us, that, you know, be very cautious about what you share because this is our product. And the other organization that I moved on to was kind of like, okay, if we've created it, let's be sharing it because, okay, here's the deal, guys. There's no such thing as a new idea. So, my very, very favorite quote from someone that many of us know, Barbara Frank, who was one of the founders of Pioneer Network, she always talks about sharing shamelessly. It's what we have to do. And I just love that. I love passing that along to people. You start with there's no such thing as a new idea, and then you share it shamelessly. And together, you know, we can truly, truly grow so much more. And when I think about my own, I keep going back to that professional, personal, because I wear the two hats. I am a member of the Eden team, and I am a member of the Pioneer Network team. And that would seem like maybe that would pull me apart at times, but it never has. When I have come to, whether it's Penny or whether it was Linda Crandall when I first started, or Ruta when I first started with Pioneer Network, when I would have something to do with Eden, it was always encouraged because that helped me stay grounded. That helped me create a different connection that ultimately was going to benefit Pioneer Network. And conversely, when I would go to do an Eden training or some function with the Eden team, I was always welcomed to share the part of me that came from Pioneer Network, just as all of you are encouraged to share what you bring from your communities, because that strength is really what makes us all better. That it brings out the interdependence. And so, you know, we've continued. I love this Better Together because it just makes sense. And we should do more things that just make sense. And so as we've continued, you know, moving on, it has been so much fun. This past year has been such a challenge for everyone. And how wonderful it has been to be able to pick up the phone or pop on a Zoom meeting and share between the Pioneer Network team and the Eden team to brainstorm ideas. You know, last year when Eden had to cancel their conference, our hearts went out to them, and we were right there backing you up any way we could, cheering you on that you'd get to still have it, cheering you on that things would work out well for the organization. And as we then looked to our conference, you were there, okay, we'll be good by August, you know, and when we weren't, and we ventured into the world of a virtual conference, our team members from Eden were right there with us going, what can we do to help? How can we make this work? We're behind you. We're cheering you on. And they were right there with us during the 3-day event. And let me tell you, they were a huge, huge help and support. And and it just made us all better together. We shared the joys and we shared the pains together. We serve as presenters for when we get back to the world. When we get back to the world of life, you'll see us at each other's events. There's no question about it. And personally, I still continue to reach out to Denise as a mentor, and I'm proud of the fact that she reaches out to me sometimes now too. And that's really cool because she's somebody I truly admire for what she has done. So, Chris, we have another question here as we're thinking about this whole competitor business. So here's something for all of you, for everyone to think about, and maybe pop some comments. Think about who your competitors are, and maybe share some examples of common ground you have found and ways you work together to accomplish that common ground. Let's see, Chris, do we have some thoughts here? Or
yeah, let's go back to the last question. How about that?
Okay, sounds good.
We asked, well, people are thinking about the new question, and I can't thank you enough, audience and everybody out there, for your participation, because the chat box is just blowing up, right? And thank you so much. This is what we are doing together. So it's beautiful to see that. So the question we asked is, what's one thing you can do to foster interdependence in your professional and personal life? And Jessica, just reach out and share more, right? Yeah. Lisa Kendall, as a culture, we defined independent as good and dependence as bad. So how do we really look at that and have conversations around that maybe then, right? If that's what we're brought up in and that's what we're entrenched in, how do we look at that differently? Evie, beautiful comment. To foster interdependence in the organizations, there must be an effort by leadership to promote teams. Giving the individuals the skills they need on how to communicate, manage conflicts, tools on how to communicate your point of view, and foster respect. Woo! I love it. Oh, and there's a little plug. Thank you, Effie. Luckily, Eden has a program to teach us this. It's called Empowered Team Training. A little plug from Evie. Thank you. Kim McCrae, by asking for help or accepting help, we're giving others the opportunity to help us. All right. So yeah, by giving and receiving, that's what we talk a lot about. How beautiful. Even believing, Lisa Kendall, even in believing in interdependence, it can be difficult to ask or need help at times. I love it. Yeah, it is. It might be a learned, something new to try out. Jessica, the old, ready? Sharing is caring. Yeah, I love that. And the last one's from Erin. Yes. Sharing in multiple ways, speaking the language of different places and finding the right translations between and among. I love that. We need a little poster of that or something.
This is great. What great comments. And it makes me think, as I'm going to say the next thing that I'm going to say, I'm preaching to the choir here. Because just like Eden and Pioneer Network have learned that we can be better together. There are a lot of organizations out there that provide education and training on the topic of person-directed care and culture change. And we could be threatened by that, or we could embrace that. Organizations like Plane Tree International, and specific organizations that support models like Action Pact and Greenhouse, and of course the Eden Alternative. But we share core values, and we share a passion for making a difference, for creating a better world, for transforming our communities through person-centered practices. We all bring different gifts and talents to the table, but we love when there are opportunities to be at that table together. That's where our strength comes. That's where our energy comes, that we create from each other. And I want to share something that, as I'm so pleased to share this, as we were putting this together, we were looking for documents and what do we have that kind of supports this whole theme of interdependence. And sure enough, back in 2006 at the Pioneer Network Conference in Philadelphia, the theme was Let Freedom Ring. And apparently, and I learned this story from Joe Angelelli and Rosemarie Fagan, and what happened was there was discussion on how to integrate that theme into everything that was done at the conference. And it led to the idea of a Declaration of Interdependence. So Joe is the one who drafted the declaration, and then later on, Barry Barkin added some input to it. And you're going to get a link to that document. so that you can take a look at it. But the cool thing about it is it was written 15 years ago. But when we looked at it, if we were to rewrite this document today, the only thing that really stuck out at us that we would change is we would broaden our audience. Because back when it was written, it talked about working with those who are working and living in long-term care settings. And we've moved beyond just those within residential care settings now. But other than that, truly what is in this document, this declaration to be interdependent, is just as valuable and just as real and just as spot on today as it was 15 years ago. It talks about recognizing that by declaring our interdependence, we are united with endless possibilities. We're in partnership. We can build community. By being proactive together, we reduce our fear of change. And when we cultivate the common ground, we grow both individually and collectively. So Joe, I know you're there. You say it holds up. Kudos to you, because what a powerful tool you gave us. And we need to pull it out of the files and dust it off and start putting it back into, and start putting it out there and declaring our interdependence.
Great. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, so again, a couple comments here. The link is in there for the Declaration of Interdependence. Oh, Jackie, she just said goosebumps. Cheryl LaRoche, I hope to say that right. Practice networking. So we asked what might be an example. So practice networking each day with one new person outside your immediate discipline to help foster interdependence, right?
Great idea.
Great idea. So, we just wanted to take a minute, I think, and ask, is there any other questions? Anybody, any other thoughts? What are we thinking, guys? Any questions for us today, or any of us on screen here have further comments?
Well, I think it's going to be so interesting on Friday. And I know, Chris, you're going to talk about that, when we can all gather to really delve a little bit deeper. And we're really hoping, just so you know, that Joe and Rosemarie, at least one of them, can join us on the call Friday just to talk a little bit more about this Declaration of Interdependence, because I think it was so fascinating for us when we looked back at it. It's not that it was that long ago. I mean, to me, 2006 seems just yesterday. I mean, but that was a while ago. And besides some wording changes, like you said, Joan, I mean, it's so applicable today. It was really fascinating to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember being at the conference, and I remember signing it. So
it's so cool.
It is very cool.
That.
I did not know that Joe had been a part of writing it, so that was new information. Very cool.
And Joe says he's going to be there, so thanks, Joe. We appreciate it.
All right, so we will be continuing this discussion on Friday, by the way, Friday, March 12th, this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to continue this conversation in a Zoom. Just like I said, exploring together the ways that we are better together. So you got the link in the chat box, and you do not want to miss this. And we want you there.
Yeah.
Did you see Michelle's comment? Soil sure seems warm. Something is surely going to grow. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. We think so too, for all of us.
Well, beautiful. Any final closing or comments, group?
I was just going to say that my crocuses are coming up. That's exciting when we talk about things growing.
That's exciting. Yeah, we're ready for some spring, huh?
Yes, aren't we all?
But it's so much fun, and I think that, for you, Chris and Denise and the whole Eden team, it's always so awesome to do things like this with you and to work with you on different things. As Joan said, you helped us so much with our virtual conference last year, but just what we've been doing with the webinars and with this, and anytime we get together to plan these calls too, it just feels like being home with our family, even though it's been like this, but still that's how it feels. And I just cherish that feeling. So thank you.
Same thing here. Yes.
Same thing.
It's fun to hang with you. It's been fun to hang out for the afternoon.
Yay.
So thank you, everybody. A lot of thank yous in the comment box. Appreciate everybody being here today. This will be, available for a replay, obviously. So if you're watching this after the fact, we welcome your comments too. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.